Hey there, I'm Emily Johnson. I'm 31 years old. I'm just an ordinary office worker. My life became a bit more varied because of this work. I spend time with my coworkers and acquaintances, showing me many great things. I like engagement. I'm sore all day after my job, and the only free time I can jump over the gym is on the weekends. So I'm strong. But let's go back. I met Michael when I was 27 at a bazaar where he was misleadingly playing. I was a beginner in many ways, he a cunning player in many ways. It all matched. We got pretty close, laughed a lot, and had a good time. At that moment, I had no idea, but everything was decided. A few more minutes and we talked to each other, swapped telephones. Vapor is carried out by itself. 3 years later, and bam! But here is the thing about him. Ever met an energetic hobbies type of guy? If golf, then golf. If motorcycles, then motorcycles. If gaming, then gaming. And what is just as bad is how he acts around them. I mean, everyone has a quirk. People do that, is what makes people's quirks. But if your stomach goes empty and I end up eating cold food because you are too hungry controlling your stupid toys. Yeah, Michael is a person who does everything in our or whatever way around the house alone. I'm a person who hires when needed, but isn't love supposed to conquer all? Love and a mistress. He loves doing his life in parts, which is fine. I also do that. I love gaming, do you remember? I rarely game as an adult because it seems like finding time to focus on something completely is impossible for me. But when I journey into the game, it's just me and it. But come on, Michael, can we have a dinner that didn't get cold long before you made it to the table, yes? So I spent my 3 years nailing into Michael the notion that he has to handle the hobby department. I understand how nice it is to get lost in something so much fun you don't see anything else. But at the same time, he could schedule that, couldn't he? Our eating pattern is pretty set, so how about we adjust living and existing the way we do around meals? When we lived together, we struggled with trying to balance hobbies and not adulting stuff. Sometimes he would draw the world completely to dive into his virtual world and not speak a word to me. I told him a few times, then I got angry. But Michael would apologize, he got carried away. The sharp irritation of him would go away too. However, of course, sometimes I will think about marrying him and whether he will never change. After all, despite the fact that he got annoyed with my reminders, only slightly improved, and I could not find any other derivatives. I decided to endure and sweetly point this out. There were times when he would suddenly go for a night ride on the bike, and in 3 hours he returned. It turned out that it was much more dangerous to ride at night, and I worried, but he was always excited when he returned. I felt he loved it, and I couldn't just give him his hobbies. He probably wanted to do them for a long time to come before we had children. Then he wouldn't have time for this. Told him not to ride too much in the second season. However, I can never tell him that he waits. Not every time I have given up for reasons of strong preoccupation about his hobbies. However, when I talked about our future as a family and told him to take his children to some exciting events, including trips to Australia Zoo, he waits. He also wanted to plan our wedding. Our wedding day was truly a great day. We got big a wedding, and I was so proud that all the people who knew us were there as I was proud. I was so excited that my face ached with smiles. 2 days after the wedding, we were planning to honeymoon. When our wedding is over, I feel like I'm waiting like him, even though our wedding is over. I've been tossing and turning at night, unable to sit, wondering if I'll ever get a rest. In the end, I was much more tired than I realized and fell asleep quickly. However, it woke me up before the alarm sounded, and I knew I had a sleepless night. But it was only 4 o'clock, so I wondered if I should return to the dream. That's when I noticed Michael wasn't there. Quietly, I walked out to find him. When I got closer to the living room, voices stretched across the room. Female voice. In real life, not on the phone. My heart began to race as I realized someone was with Michael. Then The heat subsided in seconds. "What's going on here?" I barked sharply and threw my head over the edge of my room. Michael's voice was like a blow to the body. "We're living our marriage with you to marry her," he said casually and threw his ex open at me. My world shattered in an instant. The woman openly mocked me and sneered with joy. My mind couldn't catch up. But we just had our wedding day, or was it yesterday? And he knew we made it just like that, like old news. I stared at Michael, trying to understand, but every time he seemed like another day. At the entrance, I could barely recognize myself. My outright simplicity and the absence of stains on my face have become some kind of symbol of shame. Indignation flared up in me, but surprise kept my tongue. Is it possible? Is it possible that Michael, like a complete idiot, refuses me this way and immediately prances with his ex? For the first time in my life, I found out how a man can easily fool and cheat, continuing to create lies and barefaced lies on a double bottom. The words of consolation that I uttered now were filled only with tangible reproach. In a second, a miracle happened again, and all the masks fell off. This is not the man I think I married. It was customary to wait for me to fall to the floor and pray for me there and beg for mercy, but miraculously I just had this strange state of calm. I've run out. I'm so much better than this. The next month was tough for me. I have to prop up and sort through myself while I am still so adult, and fortunately, we have never given birth. I couldn't just sit here forever. Nothing in the world could save us now. This was not just a piece of adultery for us. This was the beginning of a terribly clumsy divorce. I had to explain to everyone why I had to deal with a man. But nothing could stop me. How could she? I already saw who was the main reason for this absurd situation. Nevertheless, one not particularly wonderful evening, Michael told me I was wrong. He was going to marry his mistress, not divorce me. It was completely absurd. Honestly, I could not believe they were talking to me like this. It was like being in some twilight zone, and his solution to everything had to be even more unreal. I had to literally disappear, and he suggested we file a missing person report, as all the sympathy would go on me. I had to act like the one who is left behind, in all those typical cliches, so he could marry the new girl with the least amount of attention. Even the ex that got bribed into the whole ridiculous situation spoke first, trying to sound as considerate as possible. It was like some other language. I was so tired of trying to make any sense for them. I wanted to throw up from all I've heard after they left, but I had no time to lose, so I decided to throw myself into doing something about that even more when it got crazier. He came at my door, and the ex he bribed tried to explain to me that I had to let them inside. I kept telling him no, I had my life and my schedule, and I had no time to let them ruin it any further. But the thing was, I had this decision to make. My husband cheated on me, and his things had to start disappearing too. I mean, why not? He was not coming back in any case, and I let him know that was my plan, including pictures of his packed things I was going to sell, things he truly cared about, so it really stung. I doubted he would notice the photo, or he would not care about them at all with his great reenactment about to take place. I was so frankly unprepared for the response I got. Right the moment he saw the text, he freaked out. He begged me not to do it. He implored me to keep his things. Like I owed that to him after all this. The cold evening, the freezing cold evening, was like a regular one. I was home, I despised his intimidating emails, and totally forgot about his existence that day. Being clear out of his mind rather every madman, I was promptly taken back to the main course, his precious possessions. They were all there, though. All completed, he seemed nothing but satisfied even after all those bitter lies, all those segregation and mess. Picture this, a man who couldn't love anything but that material trash he acquired, and he doesn't know it to when the trouble occurs. I was not the only one to whom some cold appeared above. There was his ex-girlfriend, now my ex-girlfriend. In full examination, I saw the ice in her eyes. She didn't believe him to be so thrilled to have his things after all he did to her. But oh, hell's bells, when my parents arrived, just out of the alleys, having no idea of the disaster all Michael caused to burst out, I assured them of the right cause. They, too, sensed it. My parents came and interrupted the ongoing circus of shaming my unfortunate birthplace. Now it was my in-laws' turn. They came in smiling and apologizing for their offspring's actions despite doing nothing wrong. I was always busy and feeling comfy around them, looking for parks or animal-friendly places to visit since that was their kind of fun. When I officially met Michael, they introduced me at their place, and my ex-boyfriend was making ratatouille. This very morning was the happiest day of my life when he decided to propose, even though my in-laws knew our wedding was more staged than fiction. Well, as it happened, in the end, it was almost a relief to her that John Michael was eventually getting hitched. Frankly, Michael's ex-girlfriend was the source for a lot of their talk about getting married before I was ever in the image, and all I was doing was just picking up his pieces right after him. She wouldn't even let him go, and it didn't matter when or where or why, because she would appear. And even worse, she insulted my in-laws. Consequently, she grew to be the reason my in-laws had no interest in being around me. But it made him even more furious, and they felt underappreciated by him. The nightmare they went through truly began when they got married. When none of Michael's co-workers at Wales saw what he thought of her, it was shamefully uncomfortable. Ultimately, he ditched his work in the fear they felt, and when it all fell apart. My mother-in-law was unbelievably rude to her. That's undoubtedly why Emily, as our daughter-in-law, has done a lot of good. But he eloped with her. That's where I knew my marriage was over. He had too low of a threshold for me. Of course my in-laws were mad. After they located him the villa, they had a few things to say. Sure, after all the scolding, I have told them they should. I have asked for alimony for that affair, and they were shocked. No thought about it. For me, it was under no circumstances that easy. I also have known Michael spent all the money equally, notwithstanding my requests. Now, when he knew he could not get anything, his panic spending to prevent as much money as possible for me, his wife and him were hopeless equally. I ain't gonna move an inch. They both deserve it, no matter how much it costs me. A real drama took place, folks. Starto's obliterated, faith is shattered, and life is destroyed. Picture this. So, there's this couple, and they start bickering. It's on. They look over at their in-laws during the argument, and they have a feeling of revulsion. The volume was suddenly silenced, with both of them looking down at their shoes, having become paralyzed in a blink, and suddenly, "Oh, you know that little sidetrack you had a few months before I got married? Yeah, that was published to everyone at our wedding. It hurts them. That's when they go into a two-hander. I've gone through, he says, she says, before, but this one is unusual. It's both of them. They start accusing one another and screaming to make it even worse not long. But wait, there's more. The husband claims that she will desert her for a good time with her old boyfriend and muse. Are you serious? Says his ex. No, says his wife. This makes things much worse. But wait, there are few more. He's starting to go insane. His employees have sidelined him, and he's been given a less job. His friends, where are they? Well, they're all in a Ronin gang. Another, and see. Disappearing trick. What's his financial situation? His ex has all of his money written off of her bucket list, but she can't get rid of his family's spice of a lifetime. What would she do if he did divorce me? That's how I captured him. What a winding and twisting story, isn't it? The main character decided she was done. Divorce and never come back. There was, of course, no end to powerful whisper behind her back, poor girl, and so on. And now we were masters of our life, whatever I wanted and whatever we wanted to do with friends. And that husband. She screwed him, and he became ashes, peace be with him, and separated his life. Oh, I like that. It's strange that to stay in touch with my ex-husband's family after the divorce, to be honest. We became good friends. His mom and dad were hanging over him since childhood, and it was such troubling us between friends. And now he lived on another side of the state, and I had Zoom meetings with his elderly parents. They were interested in all the hobbies I picked when was with their son, and they were fun to hang out. And my ex-husband's grief about life and difficulty coping with his chosen hobbies, I don't understand him. But the whole problem is not that I'm one, and the only one is that there is a cauldron of disasters and reproaches. And looking back, throwing hope on our marriage to be happier was a terrible idea. I've done that before and recognized the red flag, and I made excuses for it. And I'm glad that we had no children. If I ever marry again, I'll be wiser. But for now, singlehood is my happiness. I don't have to follow every step.